If you own a content website, you must know these SEO strategies. Hi, I'm Jared Krause, host of the Buying Online Businesses podcast, and today I'm speaking with Steve Toth, who is an independent SEO consultant based out of Toronto. Now, Steve has created SEO strategies that have been able to rank number one for multiple keywords with over 300,000 monthly searches and has driven over 50 million clicks for freshbooks.com, which also included a page that generated traffic value of over $50,000 per week. Steve left FreshBooks back in March 2020 and turned them into one of his clients as he is an SEO consultant now. Steve also owns, runs, and operates SEOnotebook.com, which is a weekly SEO strategy email list that's sent out to over 13,000 subscribers. Now, enterprise companies around the world trust Steve to guide their SEO campaigns, and he's also the founder of G-Score, which is a WordPress plugin that helps people optimize their content with Google Search Console data, which is really cool, and that's going to get launched shortly. Steve and I talk about how he was able to launch 650 articles within 1 month and how he was able to get that to 50,000 users per month very, very quickly with FreshBooks. Talk about that strategy that he created. We also talk about in this episode why you should post all of your content now, not banking it up and scheduling it in for months to come. And Steve digs into the science behind why you should be doing that. We also talk about how Steve's been creating a new website and finding all the keywords for this website based on his competition in that niche so he can create 80,000 words of content. We also dive into some more SEO strategy tactical things like what click-through rate benchmarking is, what it is, and how it's done. We talk about his jealous link building strategy, which is really cool that he came up with in one of his chats with some of his clients. We also talk about his internal linking strategy, the science and strategy behind his internal linking strategy. Then we move into how you're able to use Google Docs to create featured snippets and get different LSI keywords and all that sort of stuff using Google Docs or Gmail. Now, there's so much value in this episode around SEO. We dig into little different facets of SEO strategies that you may never heard of before or you have heard of, but can allow you to go into more depth and get better results through the SEO strategies that we do talk about. So this is such a valuable episode. I know you guys are going to love it. Let's dive in. Do you want to build or grow your content website? Niche website builders have helped hundreds of people to take their content websites from a few $100s per month to over tens of thousands of dollars per month with crafted content creation, buying aged domains, and link building strategies. These strategies have helped people increase their traffic, authority, monthly earnings, and their website valuation too. Head to nicheWebsite.builders/BOB/ to get 10% off any link building or 10% more from their content creation services. That's nicheWebsite.builders/Bob/. I'll put a link in the description too. Steve, welcome to the Buying Online Businesses podcast.
Hey, Jared. Glad to be here.
The first thing I want to ask you, Steve, is just to open up into maybe a bit of story time or examples. But what's one of your favorite SEO stories or examples where you got better results than you expected? It can be for yourself or it could be for a client. What's one of those stories that you're like, wow, okay, this turned out better than I expected, and if so, why? Do you think?
Yeah, for sure. So before being an independent consultant and working for myself, I used to work at a company called freshbooks.com. And, we did a lot of really cool things in the SEO department. And we're talking like 2018, 2019, 2020. And one of the challenges that my boss came to me with, he just said, "Hey, Steve, need 1,000 articles," and then just walked away. That's all he said to me was, "I need 1,000 articles." And I was like, okay, well, where do I start? Okay, I'm suddenly like a content specialist now, coming up with 10,000 or 1,000 article ideas. And, I just had this kind of like light bulb moment. This was in 2019 and actually late 2018. We launched the pages in 2019, but my idea was to start mining the people also ask questions that were related to the niche, right? So invoicing, accounting, entrepreneurship, taxes, questions like that. And we didn't have a lot of the tools that we have today, like SEO Minion or keyword cupid to cluster, topics together. We were really doing it, with like Excel and quite, rudimentary methods compared to what we have today. But we ended up sourcing probably close to 4 or 5 thousand people also ask questions, then clustering them together in Excel. And I didn't really know what to expect. I had asked people, should we use the exact people also ask question as the title of the blog? No one could tell me. Should I launch all these pages at once, or should I, drip them out over the course of several months? No one would be able to tell me. I asked like really notable people in the space too,
Mm.
and we ended up writing 650 articles, so not quite 1,000, but they were all based on people also ask. And we ended up launching those 650 all within the span of a month. We decided not to wait, just boom, put them out there. And within 12 months, we had 50,000 visits a day to those pages.
That's cool. And why did you decide to do it all at once instead of waiting?
Well, we initially, did like, I don't know what it was, 20 a week or whatever, and then we calculated this and said,
And
we're probably not going to be working at FreshBooks by the time we're finally able to launch all this stuff. So let's just go for it, and that's what we did.
I think it's the same with investing in anything. Is you could just put it out over a time span, but if you've got the money or the investment to just make, and you do it earlier on the piece, like you're going to start gaining more rewards more early than just doing it, spreading it out over time. I really believe in that philosophy. If you can do it, do it.
Yeah,
So
100%. And since then, that taught me a great lesson to just go for it. And, whether it's not, I have never launched another 650 pages at once, but I've launched like hundreds,
mm.
and I'm seeing success with that, so I would highly encourage anybody who has a site, don't drip it out, just put it out there.
Cool. Okay, this is the opposite to some of the advice that I've been given before with content creation. Put something out every week rather than you get 20 articles back. Just get them live straight away.
Well, put it this way. The way that I look at it is that, content takes time to rank, and the longer you wait, you're at zero, right? So, I mean, what I see, in the projects that I'm involved with is usually 3 to 6 months of basically just impressions, not a lot of clicks. And then from 6 to 9 months, we start to see the clicks pick up. And then from 9 to 12 months, we see it go exponential. So, I mean, if you're just sitting on the content and it's, on a draft in WordPress, you're extending that initial period, right? So to me, I would say just go for it. And then, later on, 3, 4 months in, once you start to gather those impressions, start optimizing it with the Search Console data.
Oh, great. That's great. So, would you say that's a general rule of thumb for most sites? We're talking about sites that have a certain level of authority, or are we talking about most like a pretty general rule for most sites? Like that's how long it can take you to start getting out impressions to clicks, and then moving on to making optimizations based on search data.
Yeah, I mean, in my experience, I haven't trying to think like, would FreshBooks be considered an authority site? Not at the time, not at the time. Like we had a blog that saw something like 9,000 visits a month, and when we launched these pages, it's not like we had a decent DR, but it's not like when we launched content, it started to rank right away. So I would say like, if you have an average site, then you're looking at probably 3 to 6 months of only gathering impressions, and then seeing the slow ramp up from 6 to 9, and then 9 to 12 is where you really start to pick up.
And then how regularly do you come back and look at updating those articles that may need a bit more work?
I look as soon as I see Search Console data come in. So as soon as we see keywords ranking on the second and third page, especially long tail keywords, question based keywords, there's some good regular expressions that you can use to pull only the question based keywords. So keywords that start with like who, what, where, is, can, does, words like that.
Mm.
You can basically start to see those within, I would say, 3 to 4 months. Just as you're gathering impressions, and then obviously the longer that continues, and the better you start to rank, the more of that data gets to feed in.
Cool. I want to switch gears a little bit into a few different things that I've noticed that you've have either got content about or talked about. The first thing is CTR benchmarking, click-through rate benchmarking. What is it and how is it done? Can you sort of explain that process for us?
Yeah, for sure. So there's a couple good resources that we have at our disposal as SEOs to consider what are good benchmarks. So Advanced Web Ranking puts out basically a study, and they actually do break it down by niche. I say niche. Some other people say niche. Niche. I'm Canadian, so that's what we say up here.
I'm niche as
Um,
well.
so they actually break it down by industry or by niche. What you can do is with this spreadsheet that I released, if you sign up at SEOnotebook.com, you'll get a copy of the spreadsheet. Is you can paste your own Search Console data into the sheet, and it will tell you, like, based on the position that you're in, are you way below the benchmarks for CTR, or are you above them? So obviously the ones where you are below what that curve of the benchmark is, you could simple title tag update could really make a difference for your site, and it just helps you identify them.
So it helps you identify those changes to make to get a better click-through rate.
Yeah, basically. So whenever you have a keyword that has a lower CTR than the benchmark, you may think, "Hey, what's wrong with this page?" And the sheet that I created basically just highlights that for you really quickly.
Yeah, there'll be a link to join SEOnotebook.com in the description, guys, as well. Now, link building. You have the term jealous link building strategy. I can't not ask about this. What
Well,
is
I
it?
just came up with the name, so people, I thought it was a good name. So the jealous link building strategy is basically like, let's say you approach a site, and you would say, hey, like, your competitor has an article that's doing really well on this topic. Like, I could write that same article for you, right? So basically, like, the idea is they would get jealous of their competitor and then allow you to make the guest post.
So it's a bit of ego baiting, really.
Yeah, like, who wants their competitor to outrank them? And when somebody else is offering to do that for you for free, for just all they want is a link, why not let them do that?
Yeah, love it.
It's not a highly scalable strategy, I will say. It's not like you can probably earn, like, hundreds of links from that.
Mm.
But if you've got, you've identified a competitor, or you've identified, a couple sites, couple sites that are ranking well in your SERPs, and you actually want to get a link from them. It could be a good strategy where you really want to focus in on getting specific links, and put a little extra into your pitch.
Yeah, you can tell why it's not so scalable in terms of how much work would be required to create that much content at scale.
But you know what? It came out of one of my meetings with my clients, right? We were just talking, and I said, why don't we do this? And like, that's where really all the notes for SEO Notebook come from, is just from my work, because I'm still very, I'm involved, right? I do biweekly meetings with my clients. We have basically strategy meetings versus like boring reporting meetings. We obviously touch on that too, but we get into the work, right? So I'm not out there, selling courses and sitting on a beach. I'm like actually doing SEO every week.
Yeah, those people that are on the beach selling a course don't really get those clients results because, and this is what I tell people when they join my memberships, like I'm looking at businesses every single day and reviewing them for people that are wanting to buy these things. If you go out and buy a course from somebody that's not doing that, you're not going to get their support, and they don't have any real experience or expertise to offer you support anyway, which is why they're hiding behind a screen on a beach.
Well, they say like people who do and people who don't teach. I mean, I'm not saying that's a blanket statement that
Yeah,
applies
yeah,
to every SEO. Obviously, the teaching has to come from a place of having done that. But I mean,
correct.
what I mean to say is that if anybody is interested in working with me as a consultant, I'm still very in the thick of it.
Yeah, because I was going to say you definitely teach. You also do as well.
But I give it away for free. That's my problem. Maybe I should be more smart about that.
Maybe depends on what your goal is. Money's not my highest value, not my highest goal.
No,
What,
definitely not.
what my goal
It's about enjoying what you do.
fulfillment, I think, is gonna give you better ROI than money. So that's my personal philosophy. But let's come back to link building. If that's a really good way to do it, but not at scale, and you can get some good quality links, what if people did want to go down the scale route of getting a whole lot of links? Do you have some different hybrid suggestions for them, or something completely different?
Yeah. So basically, the approach that I take to link building is not doing it myself. Okay. Because I don't want to be managing outreach teams. I don't want to be doing all these things. But what I do is I network, right? So I have people who, help with trades, or I have people who are very expert in, PR link building, or like, I know like all the people doing like niche edits, or like, I basically just use my network for that. Right. And a lot of the times, like I'll refer business to people, and then they'll build links for me, right? Or like, because I don't enjoy managing an outreach team or anything like that. I've done it and I don't enjoy it. So what I would say is, figure out who in this industry, and they're not hard to find, are doing really good work. And basically network with them, right? Hire them. And for example, I'll give you an example of somebody that I've worked with who's been really great. It's a guy named Ferry Kazoni, I think. He has a company called Search Intelligence in the UK, and what he's been doing is basically PR link building. But what they do is they monitor search trends based on news events, and they basically blast out a statement from the site in terms of like an observation, right? So I have a client in the crypto space, and when Elon Musk bought Twitter, the searches for Doge actually spiked, and we released a statement saying, when Elon Musk did this, the searches for Doge took a exponential increase, and we got picked up by I think 19 like really high authority sites like Yahoo Finance, MSN, The Street, Zero Hedge, like big sites, really respected sites, all picked this up, right? So personally, I don't want to do that. Like I like it. He's got a team that is expert in monitoring those trends and jumping on opportunities and all that stuff. But those are the kind of people that I want to partner with. And of course, if somebody else wants to try that same strategy, they can just go for it. But personally, I don't have the time to build a team to do that for myself. So I'd rather just work with somebody.
I love your ideology around the networking. Bloggers are listening to us now. I'm like, I could do the jealous link building strategy, but it's not scalable. I could only probably output a couple of articles a month max themselves or with their team. The ideology around networking in your space in that niche and getting familiar with those other bloggers and other people in your space is you can not just links, like the value comes, you can get way better ROI that with the networking than just backlinks rather than just in the SEO. Like there's going to be joint venture opportunities and stuff like that. So I really love your idea around networking with people in the industry that you're in for backlinking.
Networking is just helping people, right? It's knowing what other people need and just being able to help them at every turn, right? So when you do that, people want to naturally help you, right? So yeah, it's networking, like even apart from link building, is like a secret weapon SEO strategy to me, because I don't have a desire to build a massive team. Like I really like just being a solopreneur with a couple VAs and like a really scrappy little team. But I love knowing the fact that I've got a guy who does digital PR. I know somebody else who's got like an amazing inventory of niche edits and like all those kinds of things, right? So I think, and never mind like content writers or developers or designers or whoever it is,
Contract.
right? Have that really awesome Rolodex of folks you can leverage and, save yourself time and get, fast results.
Yeah, I'm all about it as well. That's how I run. I want to switch in from backlinking to internal linking. What sort of tools do you use for internal linking? And do you have some philosophies and strategies that you adhere to and teach?
Yeah. Well, I don't use any tools per se, but I know that Link Whisper, if you're on a WordPress site, is a good tool that you can use. But my main tool, I mean, I guess it's not really a tool, but just planning out meticulously in spreadsheets prior to launching any type of content, right? So when I launch a cluster, let's say it's a verticalized cluster. So what I mean by that is you would have like, the keyword and then for this industry, that industry, another industry. And then in that spreadsheet, as you delegate that work to a writer, all of those internal links are put in the way that you plan them. Right. So I'm very, very meticulous about pre-planning internal links, less meticulous about going and internal linking old content, because most of the stuff that I do is always building something new.
So when you're pre-planning it before it gets created and all that sort of stuff, what's your number? Like how many internal links are too many? And that's obviously going to be dependent on how big the piece of content is, right? But what's your rule of thumb, or do you have a rule of thumb?
Yeah. So, I'll just actually kind of take a slight sidestep on this one and mention something that might be also useful to your viewers and your listeners. Is that like the idea of having like one brief that can be used for a whole slew of articles. That brief could have direction, like these are the pages with the priorities for the internal links. This is how many external links we should have on each page. And it basically has like a framework that can apply to every article. So instead of creating one brief and then a specific individual brief for every single one, you can just create like a master brief and then have the writers use that, right? So in my master brief, I was actually just planning one earlier today with one of my employees. I believe it said these are the 5 pages that we want to prioritize internal links to. And because we're talking about like, this is going to be a large scale effort. We're starting with 80,000 words a month, and then we're probably going to go up for this client after that. So we needed a way to scale it. And we basically got, I think these 5 pages are the main ones that we want to link to from most of the content. So that's 5 internal links right there. And then we want to have at least 2 respected high authority external links in each article as well. So how many is too many? I mean, I would hope that most of the listeners know that the more links you have on a page, the less link juice each link gets. So I would say, trying to limit those to maybe, 5 to 7 generally on a long form piece of content. And then obviously sticking up the most important internal links higher up in the content.
Cool. Thanks. That's great. Yeah, of course, with the link juice is a important one to understand. I also want to talk and maybe have you elaborate a bit about if you got your top 5 pages that you want to link to, and that's in your master brief. How do you sort of track, or what's your thought process around using the anchor text for each time you link to that being different? Like how do you take that into account?
Yeah. So in that master brief, it talks about how to use anchor text. So I don't really care if it repeats, to be honest. But what I do care about is that anchor text gives the user an indication of what the link is before they click it. So if it's just anchor text that's slapped onto a sentence and doesn't really provide any clue about what lies beyond that click, that's not a good anchor text. But if the anchor text provides the correct context and the user knows what they're going to click, that's the one that I want to use. And to a certain degree, I think it's hard to QA that. I will just be honest, but it's about also trusting the people who are producing your content, right? So
Mm.
Don't give that to a brand new content writer that you're just trying. Give that to somebody who is experienced with you.
The context rather than, I think that's so good because you can have context be different every single time in relation to what that each article is mentioning anyway, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I saw another thing that you had mentioned around featured snippets and using Google Docs. How do you? So the question is like, how do you get featured snippets using Google Docs? Like, it's a, I don't know if that was a clickbaity thing or what it was.
Well,
How,
it worked. I actually did it.
yeah,
So, I mean, like, I can't say that I do that every featured snippet that I earn.
yeah.
But yeah, what happened there was, I'd been basically talking to a prospective client, and I was like, hey, why don't you at least, like, they were like, we're not ready to do this right now. So, okay, like, why don't you let me, like, experiment with your site a little bit?
Mm,
And let's see if we can improve one page or whatever. And I think the keyword was types of graphs or something like that. And I started just pasting a bunch of, like, sort of semantically related words into a Google Doc, and then I started typing, and I said, hey, like, why don't I just see if I can start, like, typing one letter and then seeing what pops up in terms of the smart compose feature on Google Docs.
mm,
I think it's also on Gmail as well, because I think the GDocs one only works on Google Workspace. So if you want to try this and you don't have Google Workspace, try it on Gmail. But I just, like, one letter at a time, and as Google began to complete the sentence for me, I just went with it, and then used my instincts to start it again, and then just went with it and went with it and went with it, and we got this featured snippet.
And so what you mean by is you got that featured snippet is you just creating a piece of content on that document, trying to find as many LSI keywords as possible, and then gave it context. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, like, there's a lot of fundamentals, I think, when you're writing featured snippets, like, to reiterate the question back in the answer. So if the
Yeah.
question is who's the world's tallest basketball player, you would start your featured snippet by the world's tallest basketball player is, right? So
Hmm.
starting it that way, and then basically I just wanted to see what Google would suggest in terms of, like, writing, and I did that, and we earned it.
Cool. And with the featured snippets, are you wanting to get a featured snippet for every piece of content you create? And if not, why not? And the reason I ask is because I'm just thinking about if every single piece of content you create has a featured snippet and it's boiled down to this, it's condensed down to an answer and Google can just throw it up on Google. It can, I guess, prevent clicks from coming to your and traffic coming to your page. But it can do the opposite at times as well, depending on what your featured snippet is and how it's answered. So, what's your take on that? Do you try and experiment differently with different pieces of content for snippets?
So I've analyzed this, and where the featured snippet is ranked, I've never seen higher CTR without it. So I always go for the featured snippet. If you have a type of if you're in a SERP that is one of those zero click searches,
Mm,
then that's fine. Like, you're not like sports scores or whatever it is. You're not going to get much traffic. But people typically, if you're not going to get the featured snippet, somebody else is, and the person is probably just going to read, what they wrote. But most people, I think, still are going to click on the featured snippet versus not. If you feel strongly that you don't want to do that, you can put the no snippet tag around your content, and then you won't be eligible for any featured snippets. You can also force Google to use a specific meta description if you do that, but that's not personally anything that I would do.
cool. Obviously, because you've seen that you're going to get the clicks anyway.
Yeah, you're gonna get the clicks, and you're still ranking number one. You've got the biggest result. It was nice for a while there when Google gave the featured snippet and gave you another position on the SERP, but
Hmm.
took that away sometime in, like, 2020, I think.
I want to ask about SEO tools. If you were to only use two SEO tools, or if you were only allowed to use two SEO tools, what would they be?
Paid tools.
Paid tools, yeah.
Probably is pretty easy actually for me. Ahrefs, and like a beefy subscription too. And then Keywords Everywhere, just because I love it. I rely on it so heavily. I do a lot of keyword research just on Google itself, like on google.com and auto suggest and, all the sorts of different features that they have there. People also ask related searches. But with Ahrefs, one of my top go-to things is always to check out the top pages of another website. Like this is one of the first screens I always look at. And without that, I would feel pretty lost.
It's funny, when you're in business for a while, you understand how valuable competition is and how much competition can help you win as well. This is something that I teach everybody that's in my mastermind is like, you don't need to go away and reinvent the wheel. You can go away and see what other people are doing that's working and make it better. And I think that's why that tool can be so valuable, right?
Yeah. So I'll give you a quick insight into one of the things I actually did today with one of my employees. She was able to follow along everything, and I was super pleased. So we have that 80,000 words that I mentioned. We have to create a lot of content for that. And what I suggested we do was basically pick all the top sites in the niche and then get the top pages for all of those websites in the niche. Then get the organic keywords for every single page of those top pages. And then basically we're using like the API and to do all this. But after you have the top keywords for every single page for like these 10 sites, we're actually taking all of those keywords and then going to put them into Keyword Cupid to cluster them all together. So basically, instead of the old way that I would have done this is by just looking at all the URLs for those top pages, but that doesn't work that well because you could potentially have like duplicated articles on each of those sites. But if we just kind of throw that to the wind and only look at the keywords that are ranking for all those pages and then cluster them, that completely eliminates that duplicate issue and actually gives us a lot better data to write those articles based on that.
And you can rank for so many keywords there.
Yeah, pretty much guarantee like, topical authority doing that.
All the keywords that are already being ranked. That's awesome. Steve, where can we send people to find out more about SEO Notebook and what you're doing?
Yeah, it's just SEOnotebook.com. Basically what I have is a notebook of strategies that I've been doing for 3 years now. So we have over 150 different pages of that notebook. And then each week I email one of them out. And each week as well, I do like a throwback email. So you basically get 2 notes per week, one from the archives, one that's new and fresh. And it's totally free to join. And there's almost 13,000 subscribers on it. So yeah, it's totally free. And, if you want to help me out, you can hire me as a consultant. And then I have another project as well called gscore.io, which is a WordPress plugin that uses Google Search Console data to re-optimize the content. And it's currently working on that right now in beta, but hopefully launch sometime in the next year.
Cool. Congratulations on that. I hope that launch goes very well. It sounds quite interesting. I'm sure it's going to be very valuable for people that are wanting to get their hands on it already.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun to develop a SaaS, but it's also hard when you're kind of like a creative type with lots of ideas and you want to make it huge. And it's like, yeah, well, if you wanted to do it like that, your budget would probably be close to $1 million. And like, I'm not ready for that just yet, but maybe one day.
Yeah. Cool. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming on, Steve. Everybody that is listening, thank you for listening. If you know somebody that has an online business and doesn't know anything about SEO, make sure you share this podcast episode with them. It'll be so enlightening for them to hear. That's it for me. I'll speak to you guys soon. This episode of the Buying Online Businesses podcast is brought to you by smbpodcastnetwork.com. snippets.com. This network is a collection of podcasts and shows from around the internet which focuses on bringing you interviews with amazing guests who share actionable advice, ideas, and information for small and medium-sized business owners and entrepreneurs. Visit smbpodcastnetwork.com to find more awesome shows. Now, if you've discovered this podcast episode today via the network, then I hope you enjoyed the show and will consider subscribing directly so you never miss any of our great podcasts. Hey YouTube watcher, if you thought that video was good, you should check out this video here on the 2 best types of websites beginners should buy. Or check out my playlist on how I made my first 100K from buying websites and how to do due diligence. Check it out. It's an awesome playlist. You'll enjoy it.